Okay, so we're going to work with graphite in creating very light tonal drawings. And the first thing I'd like you to do is just note that the sharpening of your graphite pencil really does matter. So what I like to do is sharpen with a knife because I like to extrude a really long amount of the graphite pencil, okay? And if you see me, I'm doing this with a box cutter, okay? And what we want to do is really bring out a nice big amount of graphite for us to work with. I can finish off the tip of my graphite by sanding that down on a piece of sandpaper, okay? And this really does matter because I'm going to get a nice smooth surface to that tip of the pencil, which is going to allow it to lay on the paper and make a very consistent mark. Now, with the length of graphite like that, and look at how big that is, compare it to the tip of my finger, okay? And I'll show you the example of some of my other pencils as well like this, just so you get an idea about how that looks, okay? And I can work with a B pencil. This is an 8B pencil for really dark areas. An HB or a number 2, these are the same. A number 2 and HB are the same. But they're all sharpened to a place where I can get some delicate line work with them. You can see that needle point is going to matter. So we have the nice long pencil, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the pencil at the eraser end, and I'm going to show you that by having a nice long graphite like this, that allows me to work way up on the tip of the pencil like this and get a nice fine line. Okay, so I can really tip up on the pencil like this and get a very fine line. Or I can lay down on the pencil really low, and because I shaved all that wood away, I can really lower that angle down and work with a very broad, almost wide brush stroke. So let me sort of show you that by pressing a little bit, that I'm really able to pick up a broad shadow. In order for us to get very delicate values, really super delicate values, we're going to want to use that pencil and allow the weight of the pencil to just land on the paper. And we're going to want to hold it way at the end here. I'm just going to let the pencil rest on the page, and I'm just going to let it drift left and right. And we should hear a really good value. Okay? We're going to be very quick with the wrist and quick with the hand. And we're going to move slowly across that page from place to place. Now, we should get to the point where we can make a beautiful, delicate shadow on this sheet of paper. But in order to do that, what we want to do is we want to lay our values down in layers. So notice if I go this direction in the beginning, I'm going to want to turn and go in a different direction on top of that. And then I'm going to want to go yet again on a different direction on top of that. And so on and so forth. And so Gunnar Norrman, in making those beautiful skies and landscapes with those trees, he would have that sky brought in with that beautiful, delicate value. And none of this is done with smudging. Okay, it's all just done with that beautiful touch and pressure, very gentle pressures. And then the tree darker, he would come in and start constructing the tree darker and bring that up on top of the sky. Looking for the pattern of the way that that tree grew. Okay, maybe even getting up to the tip of the pencil for some extreme detail work. And ultimately, his goal would have been working light to dark, slowly building up from light to dark with darker and darker marks and lighter areas of subtlety. What I have here, that's a square stick, this is a Conte crayon, and it comes in a kind of a square format. And then I also have a Conte pencil. The material inside of these is identical, and so you shouldn't worry about whether one is better than the other. It's just that sometimes one is easier to sharpen than the other. So I find that the pencils are much easier to sharpen because they sharpen the same way as a graphite pencil. You're going to use a box cutter or a X-Acto knife. And again, you're going to just work to take out the wood, get rid of all the wood and carve it away. By the way, always carve away from your body, please, and not towards it so that we're safe. Okay. And what you're going to notice here is that as I carve away, I'm going to extrude that Conte crayon out of the tip of that wood of the pencil form. Okay. And then as I shave it, I'm going to make it come to a point that I can then again finish off with some sandpaper. Okay. Now what I'm looking for eventually again is to make a really sharp point. I'm looking for a nice sharp point to my Conte pencil. If I'm using a Conte crayon, it's the same thing. I'm going to shave away the Conte crayon into a point and make a nice drawable material. I don't want to work with a big square stick necessarily. Although what's nice about the square stick is that I can also rub it on its side for very broad areas. Okay, so this is something you could see Georges Seurat doing to make some of those areas of the drawing build up. So notice that I'm rubbing this on its side. And what did Seurat do? He would make a little rooftop come out of that. And he'd be working almost with brush strokes of color to build his drawing. And of course, then not hesitating to layer one layer on top. Now the paper I'm using is a fairly bumpy paper, so it's giving me some paper tooth. Georges Seurat also used extremely bumpy papers that would give him even more of that. Again, with the Conte, I can also do this. Remember, we saw him doing figure eights. And so you can work with little S shapes and figure eights and little circles rubbed all one on top of the other. The longer you rub, the darker and blacker the area gets. And you can see eventually we can work to really dark spaces. Ultimately, what you're trying to do with any tonal drawing is you're trying to build a drawing that's based on shapes and values as opposed to getting into lines. So you notice I haven't really outlined anything. Instead, I'm working in the middle of the object and I'm working out to its edges. So if I have a tree here, I'm going to start in the middle of the tree and then I'm going to work out towards its perimeter and towards its edges. So I'm constructing the shape as I'm building the drawing. So the shape is coming from the inside out. Okay? And there we have a little demonstration of Georges Seurat and Conte.